Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Indy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Happy Hump Day. Welcome on this Wednesday. Dylan Sinn joins me as always. Also from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you in. Lots going on. We had the All-Star game last night. Kawhi Leonard had successful surgery. Men's basketball finally gets back on the winning side for Team USA as they rout Argentina to snap an exhibition losing streak. It has to be embarrassing to lose those games. And we talked about that yesterday, that it may just be their exhibition games and they're a whole hum about it, but it still has to be a little embarrassing for them. So hopefully that got them back on the winning side, especially with the names that are out there. I talked about that yesterday too. Damian Lillard and Kevin Durant. I'm like, these are not some scrubs you got out there, man. You got some of the best players that there are. Did you watch the All-Star game?
I was not able to watch the All-Star game, but I saw Vlad Guerrero's home run, and then that was enough for me. But yeah, it was obviously another AL victory. I believe that's 8 in a row for them.
When I was growing up, the National League seemed to own this thing, and then it switched, and I don't know what happened, but the American League has owned it for quite some time, have they not?
Yeah, it's 8 years in a row, and something like the National League's won 1 or 2 times.
I mean, even beyond that, though, I mean, you could probably go like the last 20 years, and it's probably a horrible record for the National League.
Yeah, it's been a pretty extended run of dominance here for the American League, which is weird. There's no real rhyme or reason to that.
Not in professional sports. There could be no reason because everything is the same. The ballparks is switched. It's like there is nothing that can explain an all-stars dominance.
Yes, exactly. And there's no reason for it. It just keeps happening. But they win just about every year, it seems like.
You mentioned Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s home run, a 468-foot home run. Not just a home run, but a towering shot. That's a home run derby shot. Who won the home run derby?
The home run derby, Pete Alonso won for the second straight time. Yeah.
How could I forget Kevin Brockwaite's all you could talk about yesterday? Mr. Mets. Mr. Mets.
Yes. So he has won back-to-back titles now. And so he hopefully he comes back and tries to defend his title a second time next year, kind of make it a running thing, see if he can keep winning.
Yeah, man, like I said, when I was growing up, this was the only all-star game that mattered in the fact that they would actually play this as a game. They would play it to win. I think they still do to a degree. They really cut the players out. So, you're not, I don't know how emotionally invested that they are in this game and in that game in particular. Most of the time when you're in any contest, your natural competitive spirit comes over. But when you're playing 2 innings, it's hard to get into that. But which again expounds the mystery. How in the hell is a side dominating this when you got guys that don't hardly play? You play just 2 innings here, there. It's crazy. It's just a weird thing, and I don't know why. But it matters. But see, now it matters. It didn't used to matter. Does this still determine the playoff?
No, it doesn't anymore. They did that for quite a while, and they took that away.
That was stupid. That was the dumbest thing in the history of the world.
They tried to inject some kind of meaning into it by doing that, but no, they did not do that. They don't do that anymore. But yeah, and that even kind of increases how does one team keep winning when it really doesn't matter? It should be essentially a coin flip, especially in a sport where even when a team is better, the other team can win 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, that kind of thing. So it really is an oddity that one team is just dominating the way the American League has with through rule changes. Like the American League was dominating when it did matter for the World Series, and the American League has continued to dominate since they took away the World Series stakes.
Aroldis Chapman and Adolis Garcia wrote SOS Cuba on their hats that they wore during the All-Star game, with some unrest down in Cuba, I guess. I don't understand why America just doesn't just take over Cuba. They got the island on there. I'd say 90% of the people would prefer it anyway. Man, just take over Cuba so we can get the cigars and let the people go free and give them food and power and everything that they need. I was kidding about the cigars, but it's weird that such a small country can still maintain. I know I'm not political. I don't get political, but it's still it cracks me up that it's such a small country can still maintain dominance over its people like that. After so long, you would think that unrest would just manifest itself, but it's still going on down there.
Yeah, of course, and that's as we see another manifestation of players being socially involved as well. That's a kind of continuation of what we've seen for the last year here, is players finding things that they care about and making it known.
Dwayne says, hey, from down south around the Evansville area. Tim says the All-Star uniforms were terrible. I didn't pay attention to those. Pete says I broke down and got a red visor. This is a Reds visor. Not just a red, but a Reds visor. Well, I'll be honest with you, I happened to be someplace yesterday and they were inexpensive. And I'm like, hey, I'll have one of those. I ended up buying 4 of them for other people that I know are Reds fans. I'm like going, hey, they'll take these, but gives me something different, a little alternative to go to without the hat, the full-on hat. I'm not that red hat's just a little too much for me, the full-on red hat. So I'm a visor guy anyway. Yes, I did. RBO Sprint, IU Baseball had 6 players drafted, most in the Big Ten. Not a big surprise. About half of the number from last year. So that's got to be a welcome sight to Jeff Mercer to not lose or potentially lose as many kids, because, man, that has a profound effect. A baseball is probably affected like no other team when the draft comes around, because you have no idea really. It's different than basketball. You have an idea who's going. In baseball, you don't really know because the draft is deeper. And, man, like last year, was it last year? 11 guys? They had 11 guys get drafted?
I think it was probably the year before, because last year there was only five rounds, remember?
Okay. So, I couldn't remember because of COVID or not.
Yeah, so last year they cut the draft in MLB to 5 rounds, the shortest ever. The years before it was 40 rounds, and this year it's back up to 20. They're not sure whether they're going to go back to 40 at some point. They might just stay at 20 just because. Cynically, the 20 rounds is fewer than 40, and players that don't get drafted can sign for less money. But yeah, right now it is 20 rounds. Last year was 5, so I believe it was 2 years ago when you had all those players drafted.
Do we need 40 rounds?
Yeah, probably not. The question is whether teams are going to replenish their farm system through the draft or through free agency, undrafted free agency. It's one way or the other. It's just a question of what kind of signing bonus you're going to get and what kind of slot you have and things like that. So that's kind of the only question there. But yeah, that's where they're kind of deciding right now. They're kind of playing as they go and they haven't really decided about the future yet. It doesn't seem like.
The Truth joins us from, I think, down south as well, Evansville area. Robert Carter, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Is there everyone hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline on YouTube Live? Tim asked or mentions the Rockets' Eric Gordon trade rumors could be traded to the Pacers for the 13th round pick or to Detroit for the number 1 pick. Eric Gordon is not going to get traded for a number 1 pick. I love Eric Gordon as much as anybody, but I'm telling you right now, no one is giving up a number one pick for Eric Gordon. Just Eric Gordon.
It might be Eric Gordon and the Rockets' first round pick, which is also a lottery pick, and for the number one pick. But that would be a little bit of a stretch considering he's 32 at this point, and he's not a bad player. He's a very serviceable player, but he's not he's not a game changer in the way that
he's a solid. He is still a solid player.
Yes,
that he's still a solid. I don't know if I want to call him a sixth man. But he's right in that. It was it last season when Harden and Mr. Triple Double were out and he popped in 50.
Oh yeah. I believe it was last season. Yeah,
he scored 50 points last season in the NBA. So there's not a lot of guys that can do that. So if you're able to get that done, yeah, you're pretty serviceable still. You still have a lot of good use. And landing with the pay, can you imagine if he was able to end his career in Indianapolis? How incredible that would be for the Gordon family. That would be pretty. We need to get him on. I haven't talked to him in a while, so we need to reach out to him and get him on. But we'll see how that turns out. That would be something.
Yeah, I mean, and he deserves to end his career in a place where he wants to play because he's played a long time in the NBA. He's contributed to many different teams. There's never been a whiff of any issues with him in terms of being a locker room guy. He's always seemed like he's positively affected wherever he's gone. So it would be a nice way for him to end his career if he got to end it playing for a team that is close to him.
You were up in the Fort Wayne area, and we're about to end of this break, so we'll have to do this when we come back. But DJ Moore, gigantic commitment from the Fort Wayne area for Indiana. It is just one of those commitments that I talk about all the time. I call it a foundation commitment. This is a foundation. You get a 4-star guy like this who is being coveted by the biggies. Now you're cooking with Crisco. But you can't get just one. You got to keep getting, got to get that first 5-star. Indiana has got to land a 5-star because that will change the trajectory almost instantaneously. When that first one breaks the ice, they will follow. And if you think you've seen an increase in talent now, when Indiana lands at first 5-star, it will open the gate. I'm not saying that all of a sudden that Indiana's going to be Ohio State, but you have to have that steam opened and flowing to get that. And that's one seam. They don't have that 5-star seam cracked and flowing yet. And that is, we'll talk about that when we come back. I see we also have Kyle Neddenriep joining us today as well. So plenty to get to. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We're back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking man.
How are you, Jim?
I'm good, man. Got to finally rest a little bit.
Yeah.
I've tried to do I feel lazy a little bit, but I'm trying to do as little as possible for the next 2 weeks because after July 22nd and 23rd, I figure it's on for the next 8-9 months.
Yeah.
I saw Yahoo predicted Indiana in the Pinstripe Bowl.
Okay.
That shows, to me, a complete lack of disrespect continued from the national media. But
I mean, to be clear, it's more likely that IU goes 8-4 this year than it is that they go like 11-1, right? Like, just I mean,
4. Wow.
That was, 8-4 would still be a good season. 8-4 is a good season in the Big Ten. I think
It would be a tremendous season with this record, especially. But that's the funny thing. This would be a great conversation. That is the hilarious thing. The sheer fact that we can sit here and debate 8-4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like
The sheer fact that I'm talking about the Yahoo predicted IU for the pinstripe bowl and saying that that's disrespectful before the season even starts.
Yeah.
That's almost laughable.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a sign of how far the program has come. Absolutely. And we could definitely talk about that, because I think that's something that I've kind of been thinking a lot about lately, is where the expectation should be, and what is appropriate for where IU can go this season. I think that'd be a great conversation.
Oh, man. Haven't heard from Kyle yet, but I have let him know, or checked in on him. But he'll probably join here shortly.
Is Bob going to be on later too?
No, Bob is off today.
Okay.
I'm going.
Oh yeah, I gotta try to get somebody else. I forgot.
All right. As wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. It's hump day. We're halfway through the week. Dylan Sinn from Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette's with me, as he does on Wednesdays. Oh, yeah. Before we left, since he's from the Fort Wayne area, Indiana had a gigantic commitment this week. 4-star DJ Moore. It's big because of who he picked Indiana over. Just a lot of things. But if it's right before we went, this is what I call a foundation commitment. You have to continue to get these, not just a 4-star, but the top 4 stars in the state. When you can start getting your in-state guys, now you're getting that foundation of people that the state believes in you, which is huge. Also, your talent level's increasing, but that's just continues to show Fort Wayne's an area where Fort Wayne is a great litmus test, I think, because it is it's a triple-headed monster. You got Notre Dame, you've got Purdue, and you got Indiana, just for in-state.
Yeah.
So that are fighting for those Fort Wayne kids, because it's more of a northern Purdue, Notre Dame kind of a place, but Indiana can sneak in there. And that's why this makes this commitment to me really important for Indiana recruiting within the state.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Notre Dame doesn't really recruit Indiana that hard anymore. They're more of a national brand in terms of recruiting, but they do recruit Fort Wayne. They had All-American linebacker Drew Tranquil was from here. They just had Homestead wide receiver Ben Skoranek was transferred in from Northwestern. So they've had some Fort Wayne guys in recent years. Oh, and we have Kyle here now. Look at that. Kyle Neddenriep is on with us, and welcome, Kyle.
How you guys doing?
Detroit hat on, pretty good. I got my Reds hat on, man.
That's not a hat. That's a visor.
That's true. That's typical baseball guy. Perfect right off the bat. That's not a hat. That's right. It's definitely not a hat. It's not worn in like that one either. We were just talking about DJ Moore and how important of a commitment that is to Indiana, not only because of him being the talent that he brings, but coming from Fort Wayne, because that's an area that Indiana does not dominate at all within the state of Indiana. And so that is just a big feather for a lot of reasons in recruiting wise.
Oh yeah. I think you could make an argument that, the in-state recruiting is really has a lot of momentum going right now. not only DJ Moore, but you had Omar Cooper in the last week or so. And the big fish out there, Caden Curry is still still deciding, and that could take some time still. But it's I think recruiting momentum is something that you can't really define necessarily other than looking at the commitments. But it's a hard thing to kind of wrap your arms around and understand what's happening. But you can kind of sense it when it's happening, and I think it's a real thing for IU football right now. And not only in state, they're getting good players out of state as well. To me, the old litmus test is always, what their other offers are. And if you can ever beat out, other Big Ten teams that you usually kind of lose recruiting against, if you're IU, if you're starting to beat those teams, I think that shows kind of where you're at. And getting DJ Moore and Omar Cooper here, just here recently, I think definitely shows that, their Tom Allen's program definitely has some momentum going, some good things going in recruiting in the state of Indiana.
Well, I should note as well, real quick, before we move on here, that from basically DJ Moore is the continuation of a little bit of a trend here, because Fort Wayne, he's now the third lineman from Fort Wayne on the IU roster. Or he will be, assuming he signs next year. He's the second one from Snyder, which is a big football powerhouse in this area, obviously. Randy Holtz from Snyder is up there at IU right now, and so is Luke Wigginton from Bishop Dwenger. Both of them are going to be redshirt sophomores in the fall, and so with 4 years of eligibility remaining. So that's going to be kind of it's a group that can kind of grow up together from Fort Wayne, and if they end up having success, you think that might open up some kind of recruiting portal here and basically say IU is going to get you to where you want to go if you're from Fort Wayne, because we've seen it happen with these guys.
Caden Curry, you mentioned him, and he's pointed towards Ohio State is what everybody's thinking. But if Indiana was able to flip him, how monumental him going to Ohio State, he's just another player. If he were to come to Indiana, that would be monumental in so many ways, recruiting wise. It would almost, because we were talking about this a minute ago, it would have a part in altering Indiana's future recruiting, because once you get that first 5-star, which they have not gotten, more will follow. I've got a chart that shows once they got the first 4, how the more just followed right after that. But it would be monumental to get a kid like that, where he's just another recruit at Ohio State. I mean, not that he's average, but he's one of a lot of guys are at his talent level.
Yeah, and the history has shown us, once kids get that Ohio State offer from at least from Central Indiana, I know from kids that I've covered, it's pretty hard to keep them in state, Purdue or Indiana. And they often have offered guys earlier than Ohio State. And, it hasn't, once an Ohio State offer comes, it's almost like you're a MAC school. And it's like, well, they forget about it now. It's off the table. But I've talked to Caden Curry, about IU, and this was even when he had Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson, and, it all offered him. Talk to him about IU, and just kind of, it was pretty much like, hey, is this a real option for you? Because I'd been hearing it had been, and he, you could just sense that it is. And talking to him, he said Tom Allen, he said he's my guy, and that's I think that says a lot, And Caden Curry has other Center Grove teammates who are on this, kind of like Dylan was saying about Fort Wayne. He has Center Grove teammates who are on the roster at IU. I think that means something. It's Center Grove on the south side of Indianapolis is closer to Bloomington, so it's an easy trip for his family. Now when it comes down to it, are you really going to turn down Ohio State? Are you really going to turn down? I think Alabama and Clemson are a little bit different. They're farther away. Even as great at programs as they are, Ohio State is sort of in your own backyard and Big Ten country, and we know what they do, producing linemen and all kinds of players, really. So, are you really going to be able to turn them down? I think that's where it's going to be tough, and even as great as job as Tom Allen has done, for Caden Curry, it's a little bit different. He has obviously the biggest of blue blood programs on the table. So yeah, it'd be significant, not only from a perspective of getting a great player, and he is a great player, having covered him for the last 3 years. I mean, he's one of the best I've ever seen at his position. But from a standpoint of perception, it would be absolutely huge, no matter what he does, on the field, and I'm sure he'll have a great career. The perception of that would be about as big as anything I can remember as far as in-state recruiting goes. So, that'll be, it'll be interesting. I'm not saying he's going to go there. I'm just saying at least during the conversation, I think it's actually a real conversation.
Which would be just incredible in itself. But that would be pretty big, and it would be something I'd love to see that for Tom Allen in that program. But we'll see how that swings around. What's going on with you now? I know it's summertime. We've got a lot of AAU stuff that's happening, but other than that, not a lot going on. I know you've got a couple pieces out. One I saw about the gyms around the state, and then another one about the merger of the old Manual High School merger. A school that dates back to the 1800s.
Yeah, that's it kind of been they changed their name, the Redskins name. It kind of been an ongoing talk. I know up there in Dillon's neck of the woods there, Fort Wayne North Side, changed a few years ago to the Legends. They had been the Redskins for many years. I think going back to the late 20s even. So Manual had kind of, the alumni, it wasn't really like a fight for the name, but they there wasn't the leadership in the school had changed. It went from a IPS to a charter school. Now it's back under the control of, it's kind of an innovation, not to get in the weeds too much, but it's a partnership between a local charter school and IPS. And through the innovation agreement, they agreed to keep the Manual name. It's Crystal House at Manual, and change the name to the Eagles, and they'll have a combination of the red and white of Manual and the blue and gold of Crystal House, which is sort of an interesting combination of colors. But they did change the name, and and I think I think it's probably a good thing. And the Manual name, the Redskins will it'll still be on some of the stuff in the school until they get everything changed. But it's time, I would say, and the leadership of Crystal House, they kind of left it open to the students and the board to decide what to do with the name, and they did talk to the Manual Alumni Association and the Manual students. And this school, again, not to get too deep in the weeds, but Manual they're kind of running two high schools out of one for now for the next 2 years, and then it will change into just one school. But they're going to keep the Manual name, Crystal House at Manual, and like I said, keep the colors, but get rid of the name. And this is a trend we've seen, from the Washington football team to, various colleges to different high schools, to get rid of the perception of the racist names. And, I think it's probably a good time for that, especially Redskins is definitely a demeaning term, I would say. And, that's probably a good opportunity with new leadership to move forward and make that decision now to go ahead. And I know there's, it's interesting to go back and read the reports from, when they talk about Manual back in the old Star News, the different newspapers, they didn't really use the nicknames of any school really until the 1930s. So from, the opening of the school in the late 1800s to the 30s, they call them the red and white, or, just Manual. And it wasn't until the 30s they started calling them the Redskins. So, the leader of Crystal House made a good point, said, there already has been one change when they started calling them that, and now we're ready to make another change. So, yeah, that's kind of where that's at. It's a change that's probably been coming for the last few years, and they just finalized it here in the last week.
Well, hopefully you get that taken care of. What else is new with you? Have you been following up on any of the AAU action that's going on this summer?
Yeah, I went out last weekend. I've got some recruiting stuff coming this week. Talked to some different kids about recruiting and kind of where they're at with things. Adidas Invitational was here last weekend, so got a chance to see the Indy Heat team play, the 2022 team and the 23 team. They played here because EYBL hadn't started yet, but they're playing down in somewhere down where they guess a Peach Jam this week. So, it was a good chance to see, saw CJ Gunn play, Fletcher Lawyer, that whole team. And then the 23 teams got some good players like Ashton Williamson up at in the Gary area. Several good players on that team as well. So, talk to some of those guys. Jalen Jackson from Fort Wayne. I thought he looked really good in couple of games I saw, so yeah, I got a chance to see quite a few players, and it's a lot of those guys are committed. The 2022 class has kind of got it out of the way early. A lot of those guys, Lawyer to Purdue and Gunn to IU, and Tay Davis from Warren Central is going to Louisville. So, there's not a whole lot of unanswered questions, I guess, as far as commitments go with that team, but good chance to see them play together. It's always fun to see, those top players play together. You kind of see who stands out and see who doesn't, maybe who's not rising up to that level of competition. So that's always fun to me to kind of see how it's kind of like an all-star game and get to see how they perform in that type of environment. And, Lawyer to me he's about as good as anybody in that class. And I thought he, again, looked really good in the games that I saw.
Yeah, the amazing thing, or the funny thing, is to see who ends up where, because these spots they're disappearing, and there's still plenty of guys to fill these spots on the teams around here, at least. But the recruiting landscape has changed in the state. Purdue is really, their roster is going to be 60% of Indiana kids, at least. I think 60% probably, or if not more, which that's nice in of itself, but Indiana has usually been that way. Not going to be that way probably for a little bit, but I think that comes back around eventually. But I think that's going to even out too. I think there's going to be a different style of recruiting at Indiana than it has been in the past. It's going to be a little bit more of a national recruiting than it has been.
Which is fine, I'd say. I mean, I know people get riled up, especially IU fans, when Purdue's getting these in-state guys, and understandable. I definitely understand that. But hey, it's always, to me, it doesn't matter where they come from. If you're getting talent that fits together and what you're going after, and you're getting those guys, and I don't think, I'm less about, hey, we got to close the borders and all this. I mean, you're not ever going to do that, and it was never that way. Go back and look. It might have seemed like it was that way, but it wasn't that way. So I don't know. I mean, there is a perception thing, and it happened with Tom Crean. When you're not getting the Mr. Basketball year after year, and they're going to other Big Ten schools, that's a problem. But if you're 28-2 and you're winning with other guys, it's not a problem. So
that's right.
it creeps up when you're not winning, and it becomes kind of a thing that can hang over your head if you're not winning. But if you're winning with out-of-state kids, no one's going to care. That's my opinion on it. But I love to see the in-state kids stay in-state, just because I've covered them and I like to see them perform for their home state schools, and I think it's more fun that way. But even if that's Ball State or Indiana State or whatever the case may be, but Purdue's doing a great job. I mean, bottom line is they're identifying talent that fits their program, and they're doing a great job. So, credit to Matt Painter for what he's doing there. And I think he's getting more good fits on the way with Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith from Westfield. I think those two are also going to be, guys who are in your program for a while, who are going to be, and probably they're going to seem like they're there 7-8 years to the teams they play, because I think they fit in really well with what Purdue does. But I'm not, if I'm an IU fan, I'm not concerned. If you're going out of state to get guys, then so be it.
No, I think it's just a timing issue for Indiana. As a matter of fact, had this change happened 1 year sooner, I don't think Trey Kaufman goes to Purdue. I think that's probably the biggest change right there, maybe, just because he's a Southern Indiana kid, and he was probably going towards Indiana for a while, and then that changed. But I think that's going to change in a while. But I don't know that they're going to ever be back to having a roster full of Indiana kids, just because their goal is to be able to recruit the best of the best, period. No matter where they're from, like you said. And that will always include some Indiana talent, because Indiana produces as much talent as anybody. But I think it's going to be a little bit more of a mix now on the Indiana rosters under Mike Woodson, at least. I would think that you're going to see more national kids than you have before.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and recruiting has changed. I mean, even in the last 20 years, it's more, programs go more nationally than they do regionally, just as a whole. Maybe there's a study out there about that. I'm not sure, but I would say that's more the case than ever. So yeah, and it's going to be, they do need to, have an impact in state, obviously. And I think you're right. I think Trey Kaufman, that whole situation could have been different. I don't know what the relationship would have been with Woodson and it's hard to project what that would have been, but regardless, I think he was, a guy you probably could have had, and probably maybe should have had if you're IU, but one player shouldn't make or break you. And I think they'll be fine, moving forward. I think, things I've heard, have been good on that front as far as in-state recruiting goes. So, I think, they're on the right track. And like I said, I mean, if they get the right fit, it doesn't matter if they're from outside the state or in, but you do need to have I think there is a real thing about the perception of in-state recruiting that matters to IU fans. And I think that's fine. I think you want that. You want it to matter. If it didn't matter, then, then you're fall into a malaise, I think. And that's not where you want to be either, with your fan base. So the fact that they care, there's not many fan bases who care like IU basketball fan bases do. And I think to me, that's a great thing. It's an advantage you have over a lot of other places.
What do you have coming up next, Kyle?
I've got some recruiting updates, and hopefully roll some of those out today, at least a couple of them. And then we're working on a lot of football stuff too. I got some football stories I've been writing, just kind of previewing the upcoming season, and trying to get our preseason super team set here in the next few days so we can start doing the photo shoots and all that fun stuff that's right around the corner.
Cannot wait, man. Those photo shoots are always fun.
Yeah, I just stand there and coordinate everybody. So that's great for me.
Kyle Neddenriep from Indy Star. Thank you enough, brother. Appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you. Kyle Neddenriep joining us. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxed...
Yeah, baby. How about those 10 caps? You got them started?
Yeah, I mean, they're not very good. But they're playing better lately. They have won 4 of their last 5 here. So hopefully they're exactly at the halfway point of the season right now. They have played 60 games out of the 120 as of last night. So
the Little Bats got walked off last night for the 8th time this season.
There you go.
That's a lot.
They're not good. They're last in their division or whatever you call it.
They got walked off?
They got walked off for the 8th time this season.
I thought you said they had a walk off.
No. They've been walked off 8 times.
Golly. Wow. What was I getting ready to look up? Damn it. Oh, yeah.
Sorry if you hear the mild whining puppies.
That's his new girlfriend. He's got her downstairs in a room.
Oh yeah, tied up.
That's great.
She's being a lot better though, because when she was in the crate, everyone could hear every little noise she was making.
So he took her out of the crate and put her in a room and tied her to a wall.
Pen. No, good Lord, Jim. Oh man. And there's Tim's obligatory abuse comment. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back in.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking for a new or a used vehicle, Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month? Or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this hump day. Hope everybody is making it through the week all right. I'm trying to. We're only, now I keep counting it down, Dustin, 1 week basically from Big Ten Media Days, a week from tomorrow.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. I'm like, wow, I still can't believe it's here. But it is.
And it's crazy because there wasn't Big Ten Media Day last year. We didn't have one, so it'll be great to have everyone back this year. Kind of gather everyone in and get and just get everyone in one room and mixing together again. You know, we missed getting all on the beat together last year on a regular basis, and except for games, obviously. And it's going to be fun. You know, Purdue and IU are on the same day this year. They're both on the second day of the festivities. They'll be talking, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll be there. We'll be doing the show from there, of course, live from Lucas Oil Stadium. Looking forward to that. Along the sideline. Wow, that'd be cool. I've never thought about that. Doing a game from Lucas Oil. Hey,
I think that's the other part of this. Is usually Big Ten Media Day is at a hotel in Chicagoland area, and this year it's at Lucas Oil Stadium. So yeah, it's a significant change.
It's going to be a lot more fun that way. It's going to be kind of like a Super Bowl pre-media, the Super Bowl media day.
Like
they have them out on the field and all that, which makes it even cooler.
I can brag a little bit myself. I've done something similar to that when I covered Notre Dame in the college football playoff in 2018. When they played Clemson up there at Jerry World. So I was down on the field for that, and it's a heck of an experience. You know, you kind of just go around and talk to people, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but just getting that access, getting to do that, it's just so different. The conversations are different when you're in front of somebody. It's just completely different situation, and I'm so glad to see it back.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we're talking about that now, because I remember we talked about Tom Allen a little bit earlier and the changes he's wrought in this program. But I remember my first Big Ten Media Day was 2018, so it was right before Tom Allen's second season. Gone 5-7 his first year, right before his second season. And I remember that he got up there, and basically at this point he was still just like, it's Tom Allen. What do we really know about how good he can be as a coach? The jury's still very, very much out. And he got up there, and you could tell that he just cared so much about this. Like, he was up there just like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he just had this presence about him. And I remember actually I actually tweeted while he was speaking that he reminded me of like a preacher. He's evangelizing for IU's program. It was as someone who hadn't been around IU football for a few years since I graduated. It was like, oh, this guy, he knows what he needs to do in order to make this program successful. And that was kind of the first moment I was like, I think Tom Allen's the guy in terms of what IU needs.
It still amazes me, though. I don't know that it'll ever stop amazing me, because to do what he's done, you had to do so many different things, put so many different people in so many different places, and no one had been able to do that before. No one had even really tried it that way. They had all been head coaches, and Tom Allen had not really been a head coach. He hadn't been a collegiate head coach, just had been a high school. But for him to know what he needed to do at a perennial doormat Big Ten Division I P5 program, and to do it still will always blow my mind. This is not like Nick Saban came in and did this. This is not like, a famous, well-respected, successful coach came in and did this. In essence, no one came in and did what no one else could do. And it blows my mind, because not only is he doing it, he's doing it in a continuingly eye-turning way. It doesn't stop.
Yeah. I mean, this has been coming off last season that was obviously so successful. This has been maybe the best offseason in IU football. You've been around longer than me, Jim. You can tell me if there's ever been anything that like this offseason where they've gotten several top recruits, maybe some of the top recruits in the history of the program. They brought in Deland McCullough, who is the new running backs coach to replace Mike Hart, who has clearly elevated the recruiting. They brought in a defensive coordinator from Georgia. So this has been an offseason where they have kind of staked their claim as, we are not a flash in the pan. We intend to stay around as a team that can contend in the Big Ten East. Now, that's easier said than done, one of the toughest conference divisions in the country. But it is something that they've kind of staked a claim that they can do this.
Timing has been Indiana football's best friend on this. Between COVID and the Indiana basketball program being down, those two things probably could not have happened at a better time for Indiana football, because it gave Indiana, I think, a little bit of an advantage last year in not having to play in front of 95 or 102,000 people at the shoe. It just gave them a little confidence of not having to go to some of these places and win games that maybe at Wisconsin that they wouldn't have won in a different year. But that, in addition to basketball being down, you had more people looking at the success of the football program and what they were doing and what they were continuing to do. So you had more eyes available. That timing, and now you get to come in, and if you can hit the ground running with a win at Iowa, that's just going to start the ball. And you need that, because there are still a lot of eyes looking back towards basketball. Most people that are looking towards football, they've still got one eye on basketball. And they're going to have to continue to work to get both those eyes on football, at least to start the season from everybody. But all they have to do is continue doing what they're doing. They don't have to do anything different. What they're doing is they are on the trajectory. Nothing needs to change other than continue to get better recruits, continue to win more, but they're on the path they need to be on, period, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they're doing everything they can. It's just a question of whether the fan base is there, right? Like, can they fill Memorial Stadium at least most of the way? And if they go out, that's a little bit of what I would be worried about for someone who really wants. Yeah, like that's a great point. Season ticket sales are through the roof. The question is, can you fill the stadium? And if you can do that, and you can show recruits, especially early in the season, there are going to be recruits at these games that are thinking, hey, I'm thinking about coming here seriously. what is the atmosphere like? And if they go out there and see a quarter empty stadium that ends up being half empty by the fourth quarter because everyone left at halftime, even if IU's doing well, that's a problem, right? For the recruiting momentum is going to stall if that's the case. So you have to get people out of the stadium, and that's the question: is the fan base there even if IU's winning?
Yeah, they have to stay there. That leaving stuff, man, and going back outside is just the students. They've got to stop. You got to stay in there, man. If you want to have a program, you got to be a part of the program. Those games continue to go on, but we'll see. I think with a better product, better games, hopefully you'll see that. But man, the schedule this year, everything is there. The excitement level is up, and now you just, like Al Davis said, just win, baby. Just win, baby. That's all you got to do. Easier said than done, but I don't know. Indiana's I don't know if they're in a better position schedule-wise. I mean, you got Iowa on the road, you got Michigan on the road, you got Penn State on the road. Whew. Those are three biggies, man. I know you have Ohio State at home, but yikes. Those three on the road games are tough.
And that's what I'm talking about. We talked about this a little bit off the air, but if they go 8-4 this year, that's a good season. People, if Indiana goes 8-4, it's gonna be like, oh, same old Indiana, they can't win the big one. 8-4 against this schedule is not a bad season because that means they beat one of Cincinnati, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, right? They are the thing is they are in a very difficult division. They are maybe in one of the most difficult divisions in college football where they play Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State every single season. And two of those are on the road this year. And the third one is Ohio State, who most people think is going to be one of the best teams in the country again. So if you go out and lose all three of those, especially if Michigan and Penn State have rebound seasons, which quite frankly, I think they're going to, there's no shame in that if you're IU. And then if you split between Iowa and Cincinnati, that's an 8-4 season right there. And people are going to be like, well, that's a step back for a team that was in the top 10 last year. No, that's not like – I think we need to think about what the expectations of this program should be because it's still a team that is playing with 0 5-stars on its roster. It's still a team that's playing with a majority of 3 stars on its roster. Michael Penix, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, is a 3-star recruit. Right? This is not a team that has 4 and 5 stars up and down the roster. And the fact that they were able to beat Penn State and Michigan last year and hang with Ohio State, teams that have way more talent by the rankings, that's a significant accomplishment in itself, but it's not something that's going to happen year after year overnight, right? If you start getting some of those bigger recruits, then maybe it happens more often, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And I think 8-4 will be a perfectly fine season this year. Then you go to a decent bowl game and maybe you win the bowl game this time. And then you 9-4. That's a heck of a season for IU football, and you keep building from there. But I do wonder if there's going to be some groaning and complaining if they go 8-4 this year because mediocre again, blah blah blah. And I think that we should push back against that before it starts because that just doesn't make any sense to me.
The reality is you're exactly right. But the reality is it doesn't matter. People always want more. Yes. Earlier, I wrote down the word expectations when you said it. Where are they? Where should they be? That's two different stories, man. That's two different stories. And it always will be, though. It always will be. But that's okay. It's iron sharpens iron. You've got to continue to push the bar. You can't get too outside of the box crazy, but I think they're better than 8-4 this year, though. I think they're 9-3. I think they definitely win 2 of Iowa, Cincinnati, Michigan, and Penn State. They win 2 of those 4. Okay. And I'm not saying that they can't win all 4 of them. They can. Winning at Penn State is going to be really difficult. Winning at Michigan is going to be not as difficult as winning at Iowa.
I think that's right. I think that's something that we can kind of talk about here is Iowa is probably going to be a more difficult game than Michigan this year.
Oh, absolutely. I think Indiana's a better team, but I don't care. When you have 110,000 people, you're playing against 13 people. You have a 13th man. I've been in that stadium as a fan a long time ago, and I know how damn loud it is. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you have not been in that stadium, you cannot pretend to know the level of noise from an outdoor facility, because for one thing, it's submerged. It's below grade, and it's a gigantic bowl of 110,000 people. And I remember, and I've told this story before, I was trying to talk to one of my roommates who at the time was a former football player, and I had to cup my hands to scream into his ear right next to me to tell him what I was trying to tell him. Loudest, it's unbelievable, and that gets by with it. But it's not like it can't be done. I mean, we saw Indiana go and definitely compete and nearly beat Penn State a few years ago. So Iowa, I think if you catch them early, I think Indiana can win that game. They could be just simply the better team. We don't know. I don't know what Iowa has yet. But I think if you're going to have to go to Iowa, the first game of the season may be the best. I don't know. With Penix coming back from an injury, maybe, but he's got enough familiarity with that offense that I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. Maybe I hope that for Indiana's sake that's best to catch them early.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing here is make sure you hit the ground running. I think Tom Allen will have his team ready.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. The Lithium Channel. What is the Lithium Channel? On Sirius. I don't have Sirius, so. What is this?
Is there anybody else coming on that's coming out, or is this going to be you?
Not at the moment. No
Okay.
one has responded yet. I was busy talking, and I only sent an email or a text to – who did I text? Jordan Hulse.
Oh.
Yeah, that Iowa game, that's going to be a kind of interesting test for IU, especially if IU loses that game. And I'm not saying they will, but if they do, can they fill Memorial Stadium for Cincinnati, right? Because Iowa's on the road. You lose that one, you beat Idaho, obviously, and I'm sure it won't be filled for Idaho. But can you fill it for Cincinnati?
That's a 7:30 game, isn't it?
It is. So, and even if IU loses to Iowa, they're probably still going to be a top 25 team when that game is played. No, sorry, Cincinnati is a noon start. Yeah. So it might be a top 25 matchup. Can you fill the stadium for a top 25 matchup after losing a game to start the season, right?
I think it's a possibility as long as they don't get blown out by Iowa. If it's a close game, I think it could be, whether it's full or not, it'll be close to full.
That's what you'd like to hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I worry about is they lose to Iowa, they lose to Cincinnati, and then they go to Penn State and they lose there, and they're 2-3 in the middle of October, and going into the bye week, and it's like, well, is this a lost season already? And the answer is really no, because the back half of the schedule is much softer. You end with Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, Minnesota, Purdue. You can win all 5 of those. But the question is, do people kind of give up and say, well, it's that IU's back to being IU, and they stop paying attention, and then IU ends up 7-5?
And that's what people will say, because they'll be looking forward to Mike Woodson's first year with basketball at that point,
right?
Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it last season during the bowl year, or during the bowl aftermath. Was everyone wants to say that they immediately went back to same old IU immediately after that bowl loss, and you knew that was coming. But I
don't mean to cut you off, Dylan, but we're coming back. We're coming back.
Day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this midway point of the week. It was mentioned earlier, the Peach Jam going on. I think that those games started yesterday, I believe. CJ Gunn among those down there. Indy Heat, they had a win yesterday. Gunn had 12 points. Alec Lasley's got coverage of that at thehoosier.com. Complete coverage of those games as they roll. So if you want to check that out, you can go there to thehoosier.com. As a big week of basketball. That's just kind of the summer thing, one of these summer events, and has been for a while. But lots and lots of talent. You want to talk about that's the talent load, man. Coaches and players alike. Philip Kowski. Here's something unusual, and I mentioned this yesterday. I haven't talked about it. Reed Shepherd. Indiana offered Reed Shepherd, son of Jeff Shepherd, who played for Kentucky. He's from London, Kentucky. There are 3 kids that Indiana is looking at from the state of Kentucky right now. That has never happened in my lifetime. Ever. I mean, the state of Kentucky normally doesn't produce that kind of talent to where you can have that many, but it's blowing. You talk about scouring the earth. Now, Indiana is under a different type of under Mike Woodson. They're offering a lot of kids, not like Tom Crean. They're doing it on purpose to say, hey, you guys compete. Who wants this scholarship? I've said it before. They're going to offer 2 to 3 guys per position and let them fight out who wants this scholarship. But the fact that they have 3 kids from Kentucky blows my mind. Now, the odds of getting someone like Reed Shepherd out of Kentucky would be mind-boggling since his dad played at UK. I just don't see that happening. He would never be able to go back home, probably. But he lives in London, Kentucky, so who cares? Move. You can move. It's about that big. But, yeah, it's just the offers that are flying out, tons of them.
Yeah. That's something that Mike Woodson talked about when we spoke to him in May, right? Like, he said that he is going to he's not going to give players guarantees that he won't recruit over them. You know what I mean? The term recruiting over, basically, you have someone at that position, you try to recruit someone else at the same position. He said he's not going to give players guarantees that he won't do that. He said he wants to get guys who don't care if he does that because they're going to compete and they plan to get the minutes for that position anyway. And he says he wants guys. He said that's the way he was when he was in college. He wanted that competition, and he wants guys on this roster that have that same mindset, that want to compete at the same position. Now, the question is, do you have the talent with those guys to be able to compete, right? Like, you don't want to get a bunch of guys that are 2.5 stars who are like, I'm here to compete, but you're not going to win that way. You need to get guys that have that competitive mindset and also have a lot of talent.
National recruiting. That's the difference. And that's why Indiana will favor more towards national recruiting in the future. There's going to be more of a mix. I think you'll see more Indiana kids than you do right now, but that's just because of the changeover in administrations. These guys did not have a chance to recruit most of those kids. All those kids that went to Purdue, they had no shot at those guys, basically, unless Dane Fife had been recruiting them, but that's a different school. So now you're, again, change. So going forward, I think they're going to just recruit the best. They're going to go to these basketball events, and whomever they see that is the best players, that's who they're going to offer. That's who they want. It doesn't matter where they go to high school. Especially the better they are, let's be honest, they're not going to be here that long anymore. If they're really that good, you're probably going to be lucky to get 2 years if they're that good. So the hometown thing, while it's nice, you got to decide what you want in this day and age. What dominant programs in college basketball are built on in-state talent? None.
Right. Now, Indiana's kind of unique state, and they produce more talent per capita maybe than some, but that doesn't mean they produce the most talent, because I promise you Texas produces more. California produces more. It's numbers. It's just in the numbers. So do you care if a kid comes from Houston or from Henryville? If you're winning, I really don't care. I don't think you do. Right. Because Keith Smart is not from Noblesville. Dean Garrett is not from Avon. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Joe Hillman is not from Carmel.
Yeah.
It's just winning, man. That's all that matters.
And I think, and that's the other thing going forward here. It's recruiting high school kids is going to be less important too, right? Because we've seen Mike Woodson build a roster this offseason through the transfer portal. Now, he doesn't want to do that every season because you want to have some continuity on the roster to have some chemistry, but you can fill out space that if you miss on some kids, you can fill out space on the roster through the transfer portal and find really good players. You're recruiting college now too. The only thing with the high school recruiting is you want to be able to develop those relationships with high school coaches in this area at the very least, because when you do have a great player from the Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky area, you want to, as IU, be able to go get those guys. And I think that's why it's important that they were able to bring on, especially Thad Matta and Dane Fife, because those guys know the coaches in this area. They have relationships with those coaches, and that's how you get in with some of these players. You talk to their high school coaches, and they give you kind of the inside track as well. And that's what Mike Woodson, that's his learning curve, is he doesn't know the coaches. He doesn't know the AAU coaches. And I think that's where Fife and Mata and the other assistants that they've brought in are really going to help him. And I think that's going to be important because when you do have a 4 or 5 star guy from Indiana, from Michigan, from Ohio, you want those guys to come to your program. And then you can recruit nationally beyond that. Someone like a Jalen Washington, who's a 5-star out of Gary, you want him at IU. And Purdue wants him at Purdue because that's a guy who not only is he local, but he's mega talented. So you try to go get him as best you can. And that's going to help if you have relationships with the people around him.
Yeah. And Washington, here's another kid. Just too late in on him. That's a kid that they would definitely want to have. He's a national recruit. And again, just timing. I don't think they had enough time. I think they would probably have to have been in place for a season, but yet North Carolina is going to have a new coach. Yeah. When he goes to North Carolina, Hubert Davis taking over for Rory Williams in his first year. So I guess North Carolina either had the jump in that regard, or it's the jump in knowing where the program is at the moment versus Indiana. Because Jalen, let's be honest, he's probably is he a one and done? I don't know. I mean,
that's a good question. It depends on how he develops. I think part of it was that he was being recruited by Sean May, right? He's an Indiana kid who, just like Jalen Washington, decided, I'm not going to stay home. I'm going to go to Carolina and maybe win a national title. That's what Sean May did. And then so I wonder if that kind of helps Carolina get. They're not an in-state school, but they had kind of an in-state angle, and especially with IU going through a coaching transition, I wonder if that affected his decision at all. Was that Sean May was the guy that was recruiting him from Carolina?
Yeah, and where is he living in North Carolina?
Jalen Washington? I don't think so.
No, Sean May. Sean May.
I think so. Yeah, I believe he is.
Traitors, man. Just kidding. But that shows you the greatness that still leaves this state. Like Glenn says, you want to recruit at a high level in hopes that the other 5 stars will follow. But that's on the football side, but basketball, of course. But I have no concerns from where I sit. I'm like going, Indiana fans should be not worried on the basketball side. I think they're going to be fine. I'm like going, I have zero. I'm like going, y'all going to be fine, man. What are you worried about? You've got an incredible You've got an incredible coaching staff. I mean, unbelievable coaching staff. And what they've already been able to do recruiting-wise, give them time. Give them a season of play on the floor. And next year's even going to be crazier. I think you're going to see a lot less offers. I think you're going to see them become a little more picky with that offer, but still do the, hey, who wants it more thing, which that's okay because everything is going towards the players right now. They're getting all the advantages with the name, image, likeness, and the transfer. Everything is in their favor, really. So, yeah, I have no problem with that. You got to work for it, man. If you want to be paid for all of that, then treat it like a job and treat it like a professional almost, basically. It is. You are, in essence, a professional now. This is the training grounds for work in all phases of life. It doesn't matter if it's athletics or not. You're marketing, you're doing various things, you're building a company, you're building a brand. It doesn't matter what kind of company this is. So I think it's a great opportunity for them, but they also have to put in the work on the other side.
Yeah. And I think that's the other part of it is that IU was very early on. Sean May was hired as the director of player development. That's right. And he's now I believe he's an assistant coach of some kind. But yeah, like I said, might have been kind of an inside track for Carolina there for an IU kid, for an Indiana kid, I should say. But no, I mean, IU has been out in front of this name, image, likeness stuff. They, as early as last year, when it looked like it was going to become a possibility, they started setting up a firm that these kids can go to whenever the rule was put in place. And they announced it big. They played it big. They are not shying away from this. And I think that's going to be really important is there are going to be some teams and some programs that shy away from the name, image, likeness stuff. They're like, we don't. If individual players want to do it, that's their business, but we're not really going to play this big. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think if you want to win in the recruiting game, you're going to have to play it big. And I think Indiana has done that across the athletic department going back to last year. I think that's going to be important.
Yeah, I agree. They were out in front of that. I saw last night Connecticut, UConn is signed with Open Doors as well. So there's that. Tim says if Trace Jackson goes high in the draft, recruits will look at him as Woody helping him finish off his development. Well, yeah, that would be a shocking thing because I don't see Trace Jackson Davis going high in any draft. He's going to have to improve a hell of a lot. And this is not he has no jump shot. He has no offhand. I'm sorry. This is not a criticism. It's just the facts. And if all of a sudden he can develop all that in one season, I really have to ask, where the hell was that before? Why was that not important enough before? It's important enough to other players. That does bother. It just is it's a weird question that he is so far behind on that side. A player of that caliber that played at this elite level is so far underdeveloped on those two critical areas of his game. It's with a father that played in the NBA on top of it. It's a little mesmerizing. And I know everyone thinks that he's just gone, but I don't see him as I look at some of the people in this year's draft and I'm like going, and some of the people who decided not to go in this year's draft, Kofi Coburn, for example. Kofi Coburn, I'm sorry, but would just run Trace Jackson out of the gym. He couldn't keep up with him as of right now, unless he does these other things, because all he has is he going to outstrength him? No. So I don't know. He's a for sure draft pick. I mean, he has got to develop.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think he knows that too. And he knows he has to develop a jump shot. He's worked on it the last two off seasons. It's just a question of finally doing it on the court next year and not being forced to play center. And to be clear, we give Archie we rag on Archie a lot on this show, but I think that Trace would have had a much better opportunity to develop that jump shot last season if Joey Brunk had not been hurt. I think Joey Brunk getting hurt and Trace being forced to play the 5 again was an issue. And I think with Michael Durr in the picture this year, with Race Thompson maybe playing some of the 5 this year, I think he'll have a chance to play more on the perimeter, whoever the coach would have been, right? And I think that Mike Woods is going to lean into that and say, Trace, we want you on the perimeter. We want you shooting those jump shots. And that's going to give him at least the best opportunity to get drafted. Because you're right, he's not going to get drafted as a 5. There's no way. He's not. When he played against Coburn last year in the post, struggled to get his shot off. Coburn's just bigger and longer than he is. That's no knock on Trace Jackson Davis. He's a great athlete. He's very strong for his size, but he's not Kofi Coburn as a back-to-the-basket player, right? Where Trace Jackson Davis can be a better player is he can pull out to 17 feet if he develops that shot. He can drive to the basket from the top of the key, that kind of thing. He has to develop those parts of his game now.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about it when we come back after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life in the long arm of the law.
I had forgotten that Sean May was recruiting Jalen Washington. I looked that up recently. I was like, oh, that's what.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, that man.
They sent the Indiana kid who left the state to get the Indiana kid to leave the state.
Sent the big dog, not the big dog, but the big boy to get him.
Did you? I mean, you I'm sure remember it much better than I do because I was young at the time. But the day that Sean May committed to North Carolina, whenever everyone thought he was going to IU himself.
Did they think he? I can't remember.
I think everyone assumed up until shortly before his commitment that he was going to IU just because of who he was.
Back then, there was a lot less social media.
Yeah. There wasn't like 24/7 and rivals weren't the forces. There was no crystal ball back then.
There was no constant chatter about it.
Right. So I think up until shortly before his commitment, I think it was assumed that IU would be the place. But yeah.
I don't know why I started singing that song. It just popped into my head.
Can't say he made a bad decision though. He won a national title, got a lottery pick. Did everything you can do while he was there.
That could have happened in Indiana probably had he been there.
That is true. They went to the Final Four his senior year of high school. What more could they have done? It says on his Wikipedia page, it was a major surprise to most basketball recruiting observers. It had been thought he would stay in his hometown and play for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah. It was. That happened when Knight got fired.
Well, was it really? Okay. He committed early.
All right, I got to bring us back in.
Vehicle. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Did you see that Ohio's Frank Solich retires after 16 seasons as head coach?
Yeah.
Getting one of the longest tenures in college football. He coached 16 seasons at Ohio, compiling a record of 115-82, winning as coach in MAC history, leading Ohio to 11 bowl games.
He's the 4th longest tenured head coach at a single school.
That's crazy. I mean, good for him, honestly, because he got a raw deal at Nebraska. They kind of ran him out of town for what was considered mediocre finishes at the time. And I think if Nebraska could have his tenure right now, I think they would take it in a heartbeat because they have just not been anywhere close since, well, I guess since Bo Pelini left, because Solich was, let's see, he went 9-4 his first year as following Tom Osborne. Then he went 12-1, 10-2, 11-2, 7-7, and then 10-3. And he got fired after going 10-3. And yeah, that's 12-1, 10-2, 11-2, and 10-3 in a 5-season stretch. That's a tough way to get fired. That's Alabama level commitment from your football program. And yeah, I understand they were following Tom Osborne, who had taken Nebraska through one of the best stretches in college football history in terms of being consistently dominant and winning national championships. And it was a slight step down from that. But boy, that was tough.
They thought it was just going to continue forever, as many people do, but it just does not happen. Some way too many times, the coach is the reason. And especially when you have one such a long time as Frank Osborne, usually there's a machine in place. You look at Ohio State with what Urban Meyer did, but the difference was Urban Meyer there was a transfer of power. It wasn't a change. And I think you're a lot more likely to have success if it's a transfer of power versus a change. And Nebraska keeps changing. And it reminds me a lot of Indiana basketball. Change at the top, not continuation, not consistency, continuity, but change. And with all that constant change, there's been no continuity at either place. And it's just too easy to compare Nebraska football and Indiana basketball. It's just too easy because there's too many similarities. And that's one right there. But continuity is you have to have that to have success, period. Yeah. I mean, I think that if you look at any, whether it's professional or college or even high school, continuity is king.
Yeah. And Nebraska, I mean, it's tough because they got the guy that they thought was going to be their guy for a long time. They thought they were getting continuity for a decade or more when they hired Scott Frost to be the coach. He had just led Central Florida to an undefeated season. He's an alum from the heyday, right? Like, you're getting a proven coach who's also an alum from their glory days. That's as slam dunk of a hire as you can get. And it hasn't worked out. It just hasn't. They have not. The recruiting has not rebounded to the way the level they thought it would. They're recruiting on the level of an Iowa, or barely higher than that. And that's Nebraska is traditionally, even up until the early 2010s, right? Like, they had guys. They were competing for conference championships in the Big 12. They had plenty of talent at that school, and Ndamukong Suh is one of the best players in the country in 2009, one of the best defensive seasons for ever. And yeah, it just hasn't been the same since they joined the Big Ten, and you wonder if that was a mistake. Was it a mistake to leave the Big 12?
Oh, but that's a great question because it has multiple answers. Because it's a two-pronged question. Was it a mistake to leave the Big 8 athletically? Was it smart to leave the Big 8 or Big 12 financially? Because I think those are two questions and two different questions or responses. Financially, they were much better off in the Big 10. The Big 10 is provided them with millions of dollars. Well, we'll be providing them with millions of dollars that they could not get in the Big 12 because of the Big 10 network. But were they ready to compete against Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and Iowa and Wisconsin and these other up-and-comers that are trying to get where they are as well?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if the football in the Big Ten is necessarily that much better than the football in the Big 12. I think it's better, but I mean, in the Big 12, you have Oklahoma, you have
You just
Texas,
have more teams. You just have more teams in the Big Ten.
That's true. The Big Ten is deeper, I think. But Nebraska is just, they've not had the talent that they had when they were in the Big 12. And I think maybe it was partly because a lot of their recruiting base was Big 12 areas, and Nebraska doesn't recruit Ohio or Michigan particularly well. They never had a reason to, except in the 90s when they were getting everyone. But they've recruited Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas well in the past. And maybe that recruiting has fallen off since they left the Big 12 and they haven't replaced it with anything. And maybe that's been the issue.
Well, you can still get your big guys out there. The big uglies, as Keith Jackson would, the big uglies. The offensive linemen, as Keith Jackson would call them. But it's the skill players. Where does a Nebraska go for skill players? Because they're in the middle of the plains. Indiana reaching into Florida, that's a stretch. But they've done it. They've created a pipeline. Nebraska does not have any kind of a pipeline for skill players, to my knowledge. And that is I don't know if that's what's held them back, or if Scott Frost was just good on paper, but not good in reality. He seems to have a little bit of an arrogance to him, which it's okay. A lot of coaches have to have that or need that. But I think that you need to win first, and winning in Central Florida doesn't do jack when you're at Nebraska in the Big Ten. So I think he needs to lose the arrogance, first of all, would probably go a long way, maybe with his own fan base, because when you carry that arrogance and you don't perform and you don't win, that can rub people a little wrong way, especially your opponents when you give them locker room material to beat your ass like he did Indiana and Tom Allen a couple years ago, and they loved every second of it. To go in to Nebraska with all those consecutive sellouts and to beat their ass and get out of there. Yeah, you betcha. Tom Allen, that's one of his proudest moments yet, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. That was a watershed moment. They lost to IU and Purdue that year. People forget that Purdue also beat Nebraska that year. Like that was not a good season for Nebraska football, the national perception of them as compared to the rest of the Big Ten. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people kind of lump, at this point, Scott Frost and Jim Harbaugh together in terms of guys who were supposed to be program saviors, and it hasn't really worked out the way people thought. But Jim Harbaugh, in 3 of his first 4 seasons in Michigan went 10-3. Scott Frost has yet to go above 500 at Nebraska in 3 seasons. I think Nebraska would kill for a 10-3 season at this point. So even Jim Harbaugh, who by all accounts Michigan has not been what everyone thought they would be under Jim Harbaugh. They've not won anything. They've had a lot more success under Jim Harbaugh in Michigan than they have under Scott Frost in Nebraska. It has been pretty bleak there for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, but let me throw those 3 names out. Scott Frost, Jim Harbaugh, Tom Allen.
Yeah.
Who, I guarantee you, 4 years ago, Las Vegas, the money line, would not have had Tom Allen anywhere close to being at the top of being with those guys, but he's above them in success and achievement so far in the Big Ten, and it's mind-boggling. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the great Joe Smith will join us, part of the IU broadcast team. We got that and more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, I saw Joe on there, so I just thought I'd jump out. Hey, Joe, how's it going, brother?
How you doing, bro? I like your hat.
And I just got you. Are you a Reds fan too?
Die hard.
Man, and Kit.
We carry the Reds. Oh yeah. I go back to the Crosley Field days.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I got Dylan Sinn on here. Dylan Sinn's with us from.
Hey, Joe.
He's a former IU guy. He's at the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette now.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. Thanks for being on with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I just got this yesterday, man. I saw it out and I'm like, oop,
I'm gonna grab that. Swooped it up.
Wait a minute. Are you a Reds fan? Are you just wearing that cap for effect?
Man, I've been a Reds fan since the 70s, brother.
Okay. Well, I figured a Southern Indiana boy,
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I've told the story a lot, but I was telling my daughter yesterday, I bet I was 5 years. If it had been 5 years different, I would have been a Cardinals fan because where I grew up in Southern Indiana, the Reds were on radio then. They were, kind of the team that area pulled for. But in 83, A. Ray Smith brought the AAA team for the Cardinals to Louisville.
Yeah.
And if that had been 5 years sooner in my lifetime, I probably would have been a Cardinals fan. But it just timing worked out in my life that I was a Reds fan first. But man, I saw all those daggone Cardinals come through Louisville, Andy Van Slyke and Vince Coleman and all those dudes.
Kit and I have made a few trips. He's from Aurora, so he's been diehard. But we always stopped at the those drive-through beer stores.
I've heard about those. Heard about them. The
Old E and Elizabethtown, and
they're playing the Mets next week. I think Kevin Brockway, another friend of mine, said he may go up, so maybe heading to Cincinnati. I'll let you know.
Well, we've got the Brewers coming in first and foremost, and then St. Louis comes in, but 9 games coming up this next homestand, right? Starting Friday night. So I'm excited that after losing that tough one on Thursday night of last week, they went ahead and took the series from the Brewers and needed to do that. So they're only 4 back here. So make a little noise in the Central.
The funny thing is the 2 games that they've lost.
Hey, Jim, sorry, we're coming back.
Go ahead.
Long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Wednesday. Joe Smith joining us, part of the IU broadcast team. Dylan Sinn with me as always. Joe, how are you, sir?
I'm not too bad. I love your cap, Jimmy boy.
Supporting the Reds, baby. Supporting the Reds. We were just talking about that off the air. Good series against the Brewers, and they're fighting. They're fighting.
Well, more to come. I got the Brew Crew coming into the Great American Ballpark Friday night for a little 3-game weekend set. So, down 4. So it's a long season yet, but really needed them. I think so far we're 9-2 in July. So good things happening at the Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, the All-Star game just happened last night, and so often than not in baseball, things always seem to change one way or the other. That All-Star break, there's always something that seems to go in a different direction. Hopefully the winning just takes off for the Reds.
Well, one thing that didn't go the direction, the National League continues to plummet. That's 8 straight losses and 320-1, that one tie a few years ago, and that's just deplorable. Being a National League fan, so congrats to the American League, and they win another one. So
you say it's 3-20, 3-20-1? Is that really
3-1 in the last 24 meetings with the?
How does that? I knew it was bad. Clue. We were talking about that earlier with Dylan, but I had no idea it was that bad. How can a professional all-star game be so skewed like that? It's just, I don't understand. It's mind-boggling.
That's the $1 million question. I wish I had an answer for that. I'm getting a little sick and tired of it myself.
When I was growing up, it was opposite.
I kept waiting for a rally, especially, playing in an NL Park and with a couple of Reds in the starting lineup batting, 5th and 6th last night with Castellanos and Winker. But, little all-star tidbit for you. Jesse drew that walk. That was the first walk by a Red in an All-Star game in 4 years.
For those
So he
of
got
you,
on.
all right.
Yeah,
Got on.
throw that in there since we're
He
talking.
got on, man.
He got on
base. Puts him in the stat book. Puts him in
Didn't
the stat
score. That
book.
was the
That's
didn't,
right.
yeah,
Oh, well.
didn't score. That was the bad news.
Lots of excitement going on the IU side of things this summer. The recruiting has been outstanding for the football side. Tom Allen continues to pull players in. We were talking about that earlier with Dylan, latest from the big kid from Fort Wayne, but just all summer long, Josh Hoover from Texas, that lineman from Texas, just really, really starting to pull in a constant flow of meaningful recruits.
It's been unbelievable the job, Tom and his staff have done this well in June when they got rolling, and even before that. But it's the cupboard is getting full, and the right kind of full, and it's just great to see for Indiana football. Well, we got, Dylan, about 53 days before we tee it up with Iowa out at Kinnick Stadium on the 4th of September, so it's not all that far away.
Yeah, it's 50 days out, and excitement on both sides, basketball as well, with the recruiting continuing there. Football, of course, is going to happen sooner for us rather than later. We were talking a lot about that and how exciting this season could be. But here's a great thing to talk about. I'd love to have your, because you've been around longer than either of us have, expectations on where they should be and where they probably will be for this season. Indiana could go 8-4. And that would be, with this schedule, an outstanding season. But there are probably some people that would look at 8-4 as, that was okay. They didn't do any better than last year, but that would be outstanding. Although I think they're going to be 9-3 personally, but or at least 9-3. But expectations. That's a part of the Indiana football program now.
Well, many years ago, we didn't have any expectations when it came to football. And I'm not saying anything. I mean, it was a glorious 13 years for me serving under Bill Mallory during his tenure. No question about that. 6 bowls in 9 years and, a bowl championship, the Liberty Bowl. And, we talk about expectations. We're still in the East Division, but, like Tom, his hashtag Chase. The chase is to win a Big Ten championship. So that being said, that's my expectation. Why not live big and go big? Huh? We got a key game, obviously, right off the get-go. I hate when seasons start off with a conference game, but it is what it is. Cincinnati's going to be a huge non-conference game. But, Jim, the best everything to the fall we're playing. But have real fans, and sales are on. They started yesterday for single game, tickets for single games, and fun for the entire family. And Penn State is they recruited well. They've got some folks back. Still have to deal with the scarlet and gray over in Columbus, obviously. But hey, why not us, huh?
That's true. I mean, it's true. Dylan, they were there last year. It'll be different with fans in the stands this year. That's going to be the biggest change, Joe. Last year, the season without the fans, of course. This year now, you mentioned going to Iowa to open the season with a capacity stadium full of fans. But we also have the Barta Bowl, which that's mainly for the fans, I think. But there's a lot on the line there. That game is gigantic. And knowing Tom Allen and how excited he is going to be so geeked up for that opening game. It being a conference game, it makes it way more difficult because that's going to really dictate not how your season goes, but man, you could kick it off to a start like possibly never before. If they lost that game, it's not as big a deal. They can still recover and be fine. But winning that game could put them on a path that they've never been on.
Well, you remember the hype we had, 2018 when Ohio State came here. Labor Day weekend. Remember all the hype there to open the season, and Indiana lost. But, they were in that football game until late in the second half, if you remember, Jim, and went on and had a good year. And so, there's a lot riding on it because it's a conference game, and it would just be so huge to start off 1-0. And then something that we were not afforded at all last year was to play non-conference competition before we hop back into the Big Ten. That's key too.
Yeah, that's true. Forgot about that. So then you'll get 3 straight games, I guess.
Yeah,
the next 3.
It's Idaho, Cincinnati, and Western Kentucky are the next 3.
With the exception of Cincinnati, although it's non-conference, it's not exactly your typical non-conference game.
Absolutely not a cakewalk of any kind.
No, that's for sure. And Western Kentucky, that could be a very testy game as well. So I like the non-conference portion just to be able to play non-conference teams this year that we could not last year due to COVID. So onward and upward, as I like to say. And I kind of agree with you, Jim. I don't think 9 wins during the regular season is out of whack. 8-4, I see where most publications have us third in the league. We have the top-rated quarterback in the league in Michael Penix, and I think as Zach Osterman was pointing out, in his article yesterday or the day before, I think, and the Big Ten Media Day has been moved to Indianapolis this year, and Tom is going to be asked right off the get-go, the status of Michael Penix. I think if you saw on Twitter, Michael's arm certainly is looking pretty good when he threw that dart down the left sideline to DJ Matthews. And so he says he's fine, but, it's still a big question mark. Can we get Michael through an entire season?
Yes. That is the $1 million question, as you said earlier. And that's what the difference between Indiana, I think, being really special and being good. I think this team could truly be special. There's not the difference between this season and most, Dylan and Joe. There's not a team on their schedule that they cannot beat. Now, Ohio State is on their schedule, but I don't think that they can't not beat them. They damn near beat them at Ohio State last year. So they have them at home. And if, with all things being equal, they can definitely win the game. And so there's no one else on their schedule that they can't beat. Does that mean that they are going to be favorites? No. They're going to go to Iowa as an underdog, of course. They're going to go to Michigan as an underdog. They'll go to Penn State as an underdog. They'll be an underdog against Ohio State. But there's still not a game on their schedule, and I don't know if that's ever been said ever, that Indiana, there's not a team that they can't beat that's on their schedule.
And I think that's important because I think the other part of it is that Ohio State, by conventional wisdom anyway, Ohio State is going to be somewhat down from the level they've reached the last few years where they've been really up there among the best teams in the country. The conventional wisdom seems to be that they're going to take somewhat of a step back with Justin Fields leaving for the NFL. They still have, obviously, Chris Olave is back and a whole bunch of other guys are back, and they have good recruits, but losing some of their best players, they might take maybe a half step back, and that could bring them into IU's range in terms of we can make this a game at home and turn it into something that gets really fun down at the end.
Dylan, I think of all the decades that I've covered Indiana football, and it's been 5 plus now, but, there were years when you talked about Ohio State's personnel versus our personnel, and I would have killed to have their table drippings, guys stand along the sidelines, and
the managers, they probably had managers back in the day.
I tell you what, their managers could suit it up. But anyway, and that's not a knock, but that's just the way it was. And it isn't anymore, because I tell you one thing right now, personnel wise, the way Tom has gone out, he and his staff and these core of receivers, the Carr kid from USC, the defense, even with Charlton Warren, the new defensive coordinator, I wouldn't trade our personnel for theirs, and we're talking in July, but that's the way I feel right now. So let's have at it with the Buckeyes whenever that date is.
That'll be a fun one. Looking forward to it. And then, of course, basketball. You've got a new staff. New as far as the staff, not new to you. A lot of familiar faces to you. That's got to be fun to see Mike Woodson and Dane Fife come around, as well as people like Thad Matta.
Oh, no question about that. Those guys have been, burning a lot of shoe leather, being at all these AAU tournaments. And, we talk a little about the impact of football recruiting. Woody hasn't missed a beat, has he? It looked like he's been recruiting collegiately for the last 10 years rather than the last 4 months. And, with who, and it seems like every time I either go onto Facebook or Twitter, we're offering someone else an Indiana deal. By that, I mean a scholarship offer. So it goes on and on and on. And I see the IBCA, they're going to have their annual coaches clinic at, I think, Lawrence North in October. And Woody and, Dane and the crew staff will be, headlining that coaches clinic come October. And then, we can't forget here, what's this? The 14th of July, next month early, they're going to be over in the Bahamas. And that extra bonding outside of the work that they've been getting in at Cook Hall is nothing. It's just going to be another check plus in the column here in the preseason before we even toss it up and, start counting games.
Yeah, less than a month away there. Big Ten Media Days for football next week. So we've got that going. It's here, man. The seasons are almost upon us, and getting back from the non-COVID seasons, it's going to be interesting to see if Memorial Stadium is packed. I would imagine that it would be, and you hope, because that's just a great atmosphere when you have a packed stadium, packed parking lots, and the smell of the food going up in the air. There's nothing better than that.
Oh, no. And, like I say, ticket sales going to be key as well. And they will be. They'll show up. And the fans deprived last year of even having an opportunity, to go through the turnstiles. Here they are. And so I don't think packing the stadium for any home opponent. What do we have, Jim? 6 games, home games?
And a great schedule.
I think 6.
Yeah, I believe it's 6,
including 6. Yeah, okay. So
very good schedule,
and that
too.
Includes. I agree. But so all arrows pointing up. So it's getting that to be that exciting time of year without doubt.
What's next for Joe Smith? What do you do the rest of the summer? You got to relax and get ready because you're. Well, now you guys are not broadcasting from the Bahamas.
Well, let's see. Right? Today I got to put together. We have our golf draft tonight, so I got to put together my British Open. I still call it the British Open. It's the Open. It's a major. I got to put together my team for our draft tonight. Got another day of rehab. That never ends, but that's just part of my my weekly event. We got our championship weekend in the City Golf. Coming up in all of our divisions. So that is something locally. We just put together, Dave Novak and yours truly, put together our high school broadcast schedule for the fall. And the first official date for the high school teams will be Monday, the 2nd of August. And then away we go with opening night on the 20th. So it's going to definitely get busy. And here as of late, I've been in contact with our Olympic coaches. We can't forget about the Tokyo Games. I just can't understand what's going on with their government over there, knowing that they, were in the shape they were in COVID-wise. I've been in contact over in Honolulu before they left Monday, across the international date line. I'm talking about Ray Lewis. And then Drew Johansson is going to take our divers and meet up with the rest of the diving team in San Francisco on Sunday and move to the village. They have to be, all of the countries have to be in the village by the 19th. So that's next Monday, I believe. So I'm anxiously, even without fans, waiting to see us bring home our share of cream and crimson gold medals, silver or bronze. Podium's key. This is the big stage, the biggest sporting event in the world every 4 years. And despite the country of Japan not taking and adhering to how serious COVID was, they waited an awfully long time to, especially after the cancellation last year of, making the decision, declaring an emergency over there. I just, I scratch my head on that. But anyway,
yeah, I agree.
I'm looking for red, white, and blue, big time.
And not just, I was going to say, and not just Hoosier. There's a lot of kids from the state of Indiana competing in the Olympics. Mind-boggling to me. I said that yesterday. I'm like, wow, there's got to be like 25 athletes, something like that, from Indiana competing in the Olympics. That just seems like a high number from a state the size of Indiana. And I don't even know what the number is. It could be more than that.
Yeah, and a good portion of that, Jim, are swimmers. Especially, the job that Carmel has done here in the last, I can't tell you the last time they lost a state championship in swimming, but there's a good delegation. I think 5 or 6 are Hoosier-born natives, and that's a good slice of that 25. I think you're right in that number there. So, yeah, that's a good, excellent delegation.
Well, that's crazy. But, man, it's always great to have Joe Smith on with us. I can't wait till the start of the high school season to get to dial around and hear that voice. And then, of course, when the Hoosiers begin football season as well, you'll be there along with Don Fisher and Buck Seward to get those games called out.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I say, a little bit different. It's just having the fans. I know how excited we were, just to have some semblance of fans toward the latter half of the season, but we saw a lot of empty seats, obviously, and hopefully that's long past us in the rearview mirror, and we move forward with an excellent gridiron, and once we go inside to Simon Scott basketball for Woody and Dane and the rest of the Hoosier staff.
Joe Smith, I can't thank you enough, man. It's always a great time and have you on.
Well, anytime, Jim, and go Reds. Love your hat, like I said at the start. So, wear it with pride, my man. You're a Southern Indiana boy.
I have to find one I may have one for you. Joe Smith joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with no, we're not back. We're about to close out the show. We're about done. Joe, thank you very much, brother. Well, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Dylan, good seeing you, my friend. Have a great rest of July and August.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. We really appreciate it.
All righty, guys. See you.
You betcha. The great Joe Smith joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Long-time member of the Indiana broadcasting team and just a broadcasting Hall of Famer here in the state of Indiana. Love hearing his voice. It's just some voices you just love hearing on radio, and he's just got one of those voices, man. I don't know if those people are still coming along. The voices that you just hear and you love to listen to. So he's just got one of them, man. Yeah, if you haven't heard him call a game, you're missing out on stuff. It's like listening. Everyone has their favorites. Don Fisher, of course, one of the longtime greats in the history of the game. But there are just so many good voices out there. Joe's got one of them, man, to listen to.
Absolutely. And of course we appreciate him coming on. He is one of the greats out there. Just only up there with Don Fisher. So yeah, great to have him on.
Yeah, Indiana's lucky. If something
extremely lucky. If Don Fisher were to get sick for a game, Joe Smith could slide right in there and they would barely miss a beat. I mean, it's just so lucky for that. What's up next for you, man? Basically this week we're kind of just continuing to cover the Tin Caps, getting ready for Big Ten Media Day. We have the Fort Wayne Champs, a basketball tournament team trying to make their way through the basketball tournament coming up here. So we have that as well. And of course we have we have continued coverage of Fort Wayne athletes, including Grant Richardson from IU, who played 3 seasons of high school baseball here, and yesterday was drafted into the New York Yankees system. So yeah, we have a lot of coverage of all that coming up here at the Journal-Gazette.
What's up next on the sports schedule? Just not a lot going on.
Big Ten Media Day, next big event, as we said.
Well, yeah, I meant this weekend on TV. Anything to watch? You got the golf events. You had the senior PGA that just something happened there that we didn't talk about. What was it? Oh man, there was something that happened. I can't remember what it was, but oh well, wasn't.
But anyway, the British Open is this week. So we can talk about that, and the
Open
Championship.
When did they stop calling it the British Open, or did they ever really call it the British?
I think it was always officially called the Open Championship. But yeah, I think we call it the British Open here to distinguish it from the U.S. Open. But that's this week. NBA Finals Game 4 is tonight. As the Bucks try to get back into that series as well.
Is that 3-0 right now?
It is 2-1. The Bucks got
they did get
Game 3. Yeah, they did. So they made it a series. Giannis has scored 40 points in back-to-back games.
44. Yeah, it's got. They've got to win tonight, or this series is over. I think.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's going to be a great crowd over there at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. We cannot thank you guys enough. Without you, we've got nothing to do. But I want to thank Joe Smith and, of course, thank Dylan Sinn and Kyle Neddenriep, in addition to John, the producer. But thank you guys most of all. We'll be back tomorrow again to do it all over. Dustin Schutte, Chris Denari, Matt Taylor should be back. We'll see what else we can get scared up. Dylan, thanks, brother. Appreciate you. Go out and have a great rest of your week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Jim. This was a lot of fun.
You betcha. Everybody else as well. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.